Hello, this is Professor Christopher Nickel, and to start you off, I'm going to give you an introduction to the Photoshop workspace. When you initially open Photoshop, the default is to bring you to this screen, which is called the Startup screen. You will see in the main area of your workspace a number of thumbnails here, which represent the recent files that you have worked on. You can switch between a thumbnail view that shows you the pictures and just a list that details the name of the file by clicking on these two icons here, the lines and the squares. I personally prefer the squares. This scene also provides you with the ability to open a new file or to open an existing file of a picture that you're planning to edit. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to open a file for us to explore the workspace through. The open file actually brings you to the last folder that you looked into to open a file in Photoshop. So you may have to do some searching to find the new file that you're working on. Once your file is open, this is the view that you will find. This entire screen here, if I draw around the outside edges, is the application window. Within the application window, at the very top, you have your menu bar. Your menu bar has many of the functions that will both affect the entire document overall, but also allow you to open tools that will affect specific areas or aspects of the image that you're working with. If you click on the individual menus, a whole list of different functions will pull down. We won't get into what each one of these things does now. Those will be slowly introduced as we go through the course. But in the meantime, let me just show you a couple of the functions here. On the right-hand side of the individual menu options, if you see a triangle, that means a second submenu will open. If you see three dots after the menu option, that means that an entirely new window will open that presents more options for how you can affect your image. In addition, to the right of some of the menu items, you will see a series of symbols. Those symbols represent keystroke shortcuts, which means a series of keys that you can hold down simultaneously to enact the function that the menu item pertains to without opening the menu. Again, we will cover these more in depth as we move forward in the class, but just as an introduction, I can explain what some of these symbols are. This diagonal line with the dash above it is your Option key. The arrow pointing up is the Shift key. This clover symbol is your command on a Mac or your control on a PC, and the letter is the letter key, fairly self-explanatory. If we move down, the area that the image occupies is called the document window. The document window has a background, this gray area, and that's actually a setting that you can affect by going to your Photoshop preferences, where a lot of the ways that you interact with the program and the way that the program appears to you can be altered. It also will give you the overall size of the image, and this number here, this 30.6 M, is actually how many pixels there are in the document. So this document has 30.6 megapixels or 30.6 million pixels in it. It also shows you the size that you are seeing it at. So I'm seeing it only at 25% of the actual size of the document, which indicates that this is a far more detailed image than what I'm seeing. At the top of the document window, you'll have a tab, and the tab shows the document name, once again, the size that it's being displayed at, and then the color mode that it is being displayed in. Again, we'll cover this later on, so don't worry about what that means at the moment. If you have multiple images open simultaneously, you will see further tabs along the top here, and you can easily switch between images and documents just by clicking on those alternative tabs. On the left-hand side here, you have the toolbar, or the tool panel. Within the tool panel are all of the individual tools that you will use to affect the image that you are working with. Again, we're not going to cover what each one of the tools does at the moment, but just bear in mind that most of the things that you do to alter your image are going to be housed over here. Now, as you move from tool to tool and you leave your cursor over it, you'll see a small box pops up that actually gives you the name of the tool, which is really helpful when you're trying to remember what does what and what the icon is for what that tool is. In addition, this small triangle in the lower right-hand corner of the tool indicates that there are more tools available under that icon. So if you click and hold on that icon, you'll see more tools pop up that you can switch between just by selecting them from the menu that appears. You may have noticed that this bar across the top of the screen changes every time I change a tool. This is your tool's option bar. And what appears there is specific to the tool that I am currently working with. Each tool has a whole range of options that can affect the way that that tool interacts with the image. Again, we aren't going to cover that in this demo, but just be aware that this is a very important area for every single thing that you do within Photoshop, and that you will be interacting with that space as you decide how you want your tool to behave. Moving over to the right side of our window here, we see our panels. Our panels give us information about the document and also give us further options of how to alter it. There are numerous panels that we will work with over the course of the term, all of which are listed under the Window menu heading. Each one of these indicates a different panel that has a different range of options within it. Your panels can be customized in a number of ways, both in the way that you interact with them and the way that they appear within the application frame. First and foremost, your panels can be rearranged in almost an infinite number of different variations. To rearrange them, you click on the tab that indicates the name of the panel, and that allows you to drag that panel around and place it anywhere on the screen. This is called a floating panel. If you don't wish to see the panel anymore, you simply click the X in the upper left-hand corner and the panel will disappear. If you want that panel to reappear, you go back to Window, choose the name of the panel that you just closed, and it will reappear in the area that it was last used. You'll notice in my panels over on the right that I have several tabs in a single window. That means that I have what's called stacked panels. Stacked panels are very useful for making groups of different panels that you will oftentimes use together and want to see at once but not necessarily use all at the same time. If you want to add panels to a group of stacked panels, you simply pull a panel over until you see a blue highlight surround the entire window, drop it into place, and it will be added to your stack. If you want to remove a panel from your stack, you simply click the tab, drag it away, and you can replace it anywhere you want. You can also create new windows to be seen in this group on the right that will be seen simultaneously. If I pull a panel over and see a horizontal highlight above it and release the panel by releasing the click, it will appear above the other open panel window. I can do the same to the bottom, where I see that horizontal highlight at the bottom, and there we go. My panel has reappeared down at the bottom. I can also adjust the size of the panels of how they appear as a percentage by simply moving my cursor over the horizontal bar separating them until I have this two-way arrow symbol, and I can slide it down, slide it up until I have the proportions that I'm looking for. Just to the left of my open panels here, I have a series of collapsed panels. This means that I have even more panels available to me that I can simply click on the icon for and see the window with all the information involved. If I want to recollapse it, I simply push that double arrow at the top bar and we'll go back to a collapsed state. If I want to move a collapsed panel into one of my panel stacks, once again, I can simply grab the tab, move it onto the open window until I have the entire frame highlighted, and there it is, it's in my stack and out of the collapsed panels pane. If I want to add a panel to the collapsed panels bar, I simply slide it over until I get a blue square at the very bottom of all the other collapsed panels, and I can drop it into place. I can order these collapsed panels in any manner that you desire, and all you're looking for is the horizontal blue highlight in between the collapsed panels. You can move it up or down the list. If you slide it and drop it directly on existing collapsed panels, you will see that blue square highlight surround the entire group, and as you drop it in there and open that panel, it will automatically create a stacked panel. Again, I can unstack these panels just by clicking, holding, and dragging away, and then I can reintroduce it to my collapsed panels bar. Now, if I wish to have two vertical rows of panels, I can slide a panel until I get a vertical blue highlight, and now I have two rows of collapsed panels. In addition, if I take it one notch further, I'll have a second row of open panels. Generally speaking, you want to see your image as large as possible. So it tends to be the best arrangement for the panels is to have a single column of collapsed panels and then a single column of open panels. As we begin to work in this class, the two panels that are going to be most useful are the layers panel and the history panel. So I want you to practice opening your Photoshop program and having those two and only those two visible. If you have an arrangement that you find yourself consistently using, you can actually create a new workspace so as that with a click of a button, you can return all your panels and tools to that arrangement. If you go to the window menu and go to Workspace, you will see a list of preset workspaces that Photoshop has developed for different applications. Each one of these workspaces brings up a different selection of panels for you to choose from. You can access the same menu from this icon in the upper right-hand corner as well. If you want to create your own workspace that you think functions well for the way that you tend to use Photoshop, you simply click on New Workspace, give it a name that you'll remember, and save. In the future, you go to Workspace and you'll see it on the list of workspaces to choose. That concludes our tour of the Photoshop workspace. Remembering the terms for each of the areas and each of the functions will be important as we move forward, as well as where to find the different tools, panels, and functions in Photoshop. So please do your best to remember these terms and return to this video if necessary in the future. Thank you.